Texas is at the halfway point of the season and recruiting is heading into the final stretch. Which major players are still on the board? What crucial positions still need to be filled? And how will the portal benefit the Longhorns come the offseason? Justin Wells, recruiting expert at Inside Texas, stops by to catch us up to speed on the 2023 class. He's dropping recruiting nuggets left and right on the daily, so make sure to head over to InsideTexas.com and subscribe today. Link in the description. There's only a few spots left, but there are some key names, so let's see how this class is shaping up late into the cycle. Without further ado, let's get into it. Glad you're back on, Justin, and we saw Arch was in town last weekend, so did he have a good time? And he finally got to see his first win in person.
He got to see a win. You know, he's watched a little bit on TV, but in person, that win was big. But overall, you have to understand with Arch Manning, it's not really about the wins and losses when he comes and watches a game. Of course, he loves to see a win. Everyone around the program is happier afterwards. But, you know, Arch rolls deep in greenies. He brought a ton of his New Orleans crew to him, including tight end and Texas commit Will Randall and 2025 offensive lineman Brett Bordelon, who also holds a Texas offer. Bordelon is a LSU legacy. His brother, Bo, plays on the offensive line there right now. His family, mother and father, both from LSU. His family's telling him to look around. He had a lot of fun. He brought a bunch of his friends, and they had a great time and got to interact with guys like Colton Voshik and Peyton Kirkland and Jonte Cook and Malik Muhammad. I've learned this in the last few years. Anytime these recruits from the same class can get together, and it's more than just texting each other and calling each other on the phone or hitting each other up on social media. It's that camaraderie. The more they're together, the more they're likely to stick together. And I think that's what Arch does really well. A lot of kids go on social media, a lot of recruits, and they'll just tweet out all sorts of stuff. Hey, this kid should go here. Hey, hashtag this kid should stay home. Arch is pretty judicious with that process. He'll pick a kid every once in a while, flash something up on Instagram, and that's to let you know that they're important. And especially with the last guy he posted about, Deuce Robinson, who's taking an official visit to Texas on November 12th when they play TCU. Arch had a good time. He knows what he's doing. He's making the rounds. He's made Austin home. Arch actually came in early on Friday, and I'm told that group enjoyed the ACL event as well. So Arch Manning shows up, it's a party, and they got a good win in the process.
Yeah, I was glad he got to leave happy. And then at running back, we had a commit attend the Clemson-Florida State game, and it freaked fans out a bit. So what's the word on Cedric Baxter, and is he still looking solid?
Yeah, I think the fan base can calm down on this one. A couple of things to know about Cedric. Absolutely. If you've got a commitment and he's visiting another school around this time, October, November, December, it's usually a cause for concern. With Cedric, it's not. I'll say this: our Jerry Hamilton from On3 and Inside Texas, he was down there this week. He got to see him. Baxter reassured everyone there's no flipping. And understand in this recruitment, Tashard Choice has been tremendous. He has such a close relationship with Baxter and his family. You know, a lot of times you would be worried. But with that bond that they have, I just don't think it's an issue. I think Baxter has wanted to go to Texas for the last 6 to 8 months. He's committed, and I would be shocked if he flipped at this point.
Good stuff. And you mentioned five-star tight end Deuce Robinson's scheduled visit for the TCU game. So is that crystallizing and becoming more real? What's the update with Deuce?
Well, Deuce, you know, originally was supposed to come for the Texas-Alabama game. And his high school game that Friday was canceled and got moved to Saturday. I believe it was because of weather. And so he wasn't able to come in, and he was highly disappointed that he didn't get to see that game, which it was wound up being a tremendous game. But Deuce told the staff, I'm going to come to Texas. I'm interested. I will be there at some point. And he stood up for his word. He said an official on November 12th. The thing to understand about Deuce Robinson is Texas has 2 commitments from the tight end position in 2023. Will Randall, who's coming off an ACL injury, and Spencer Shannon out of Mater Dei, who's just a big, giant machine. This is Steve Sarkisian's version of churning the bottom of the roster. Anytime you can add a talented kid, it doesn't matter if you have 4 or 5 committed at that spot. A Deuce Robinson is a take in every class. This is a kid that's going to play on Sundays in the NFL if he doesn't carve out an MLB baseball career, because he's definitely a top prospect who's actually talking to the Texas baseball program as well. He's that type of athlete. Arch is definitely connecting with him. I'd say USC probably is still your silent leader. Georgia has thrown their hand in the mix as well. You'll see the bigger schools come out closer to signing day. But listen, If and when Robinson hits campus, and if that visit goes as it should, that's real. This is a real recruitment. And at the end of the day, even though you have 2 tight ends committed, you do not turn down a 5-star player like a Deuce Robinson. You take every one in every cycle you can. That's how you build a quality program.
If Georgia wants him at tight end, then I want him because that room's crazy. And then at wide receiver, Jonah Wilson decommitted, and he actually just recently committed to Houston. But we have 2 other names there that we're after. So what's the word on those guys?
Right now, Ryan Niblett and Jonte Cook are the 2 receivers committed in this class. To be a little forward, I would let fans know Jonah Wilson wasn't a loss. That was I feel like that was a program decision. They're looking for fits. They're looking for the right guys, and I think they want someone with a little more speed on the outside. And that's why they're talking to a DeAndre Moore out of St. John Bosco, Louisville commit. He's seriously considering Texas and Georgia. He's looking at scheduling a visit, and he's already been to Texas once. He's looking to come back. I think Texas has more at the top of their priority list. And the next guy there is Jaden Greathouse. I actually went to Austin Westlake yesterday morning for practice to catch up with a lot of those guys. And Greathouse assured me he's still solid to Notre Dame. He also told me he's probably going to visit Texas again, and he'd like to catch another game. This is one of those where Greathouse is an early enrollee. And so if you're going to squeeze, it needs to kind of start happening now because he's only got a couple months left. But he's one of the most productive players in the history of Texas high school football. The Texas staff recognizes that. They absolutely love him. They're going to take one of the 2, rather it's Moore or Greathouse. And then for the last spot, I think they're going to save that for a portal receiver.
And then on offensive line, are we settled there, or are there any more targets floating around?
Right now, I think the only thing to pay attention on the O-line is Andre Kojo talking to TCU. I think there's some family influence there that wants him to stay a little bit closer to home, from Mansfield to Fort Worth. So that's something to monitor on top of TCU's success this year. They're having a great year. Marcus Deal is still in the mix. He's a guy that Texas, I think a lot of schools would prefer that he plays the offensive line, but he's settled on he wants to play a defensive tackle spot. And so I think that's a guy that's still in the mix for Texas. I think they look great for the Garland, Naaman Forrest kid. But right now, O-line is probably settled for the most part. I don't think they'd go to the portal at this point because they've done a tremendous job of recruiting and developing those young kids that are playing right now. So the only thing with O-line I would watch, if for some reason he does commit to Texas and comes in as a defensive lineman, if he ultimately moves to the O-line, which I feel like is probably his NFL position.
That's a good transition to interior defensive line. And we're going to lose a lot there next season. Any players there we need to pay attention to?
I think Texas wants one more, but I don't think they want a developmental kid. I think they want somebody that can come in and play immediately. They offered JUCO prospect Derek Hunter this last week, and I anticipate Bo Davis and those guys probably offering a couple other JUCOs. That's what they're looking for right now. They want guys that are going to come in with a little bit of age, a little bit of wear and tear, and a little bit of the experience to come in and play it. Because when you lose a Keandre Coburn, a Moro Ajomo, and Devondre Sweat, that's almost 1,000 pounds of defensive interior you got to replace. And so you don't always find those guys ready-made. You don't always get a Byron Murphy who's just ready-made out of high school. And I think Texas' goal right now is to add another one, but it would probably be in the JUCO ranks, if not portal.
Interesting. And then let's look at edge. There's 2 familiar names there, an OU commit, Colton Vosick, whose dad played at Texas, and then Tassilia Kana, whose sister plays at Texas currently. So what's the latest news on the edge spots?
You and I have talked about this before. The edge spot, I feel like they need 2 guys. They'll settle for one. They're going to get one, but they definitely need some guys over there, and they may wind up going to the portal for another. But right now, they're going full bore for Colton Vosick. This is a kid that's a Longhorn legacy. His dad, Brian, played at Texas. He's actually a D-line coach at Westlake. I got to chat with him yesterday. I got to meet Colton's little brother, Connor Vosick. He's the next Vosick. 2025 edge rusher, 6'4", 210 pounds. The thing you have to know about Colton is the first thing he lets you know is he's solid to Oklahoma. But this is a guy that winds up showing up at Texas week in and week out. And granted, it's close to home, and these games are easy to see, and he gets to hang out with a lot of his friends. But don't get it twisted. These Westlake kids at Texas know how to recruit. Michael Taft, Connor Robertson, those guys are tremendous. But what's really gotten Vosick's attention is Ethan Burke. That's his best friend. Those were the 2 twin towers on the edge for Westlake's defense last year that were just so overwhelming. And seeing Burke's progress in the first year, seeing how much Texas uses him in a pass rush situation, and seeing how well he's played really resonates with Vosick. Colton really pays attention and notices that stuff. And so I asked him, He reiterated he's solid. He likes the relationship he has with Brent Venables and has no problem with OU kind of having a mediocre type season. He understands that happens with first year coaches. But if you talk to sources around that program and you talk to people close to that recruitment, Texas and Colton Voshik, they look better and better each day. Voshik's not going to come out and say it, but he's talking to those guys on a regular basis. Those guys are doing a tremendous job of recruiting him. We reported, don't be surprised if he shows up to the Red River Shootout. He did. We reported, don't be surprised if he shows up to the Iowa State game. He did. And he told me yesterday, don't be surprised if he shows up to another home game or two before the end of the season. Akana's a kid. If you're a football fan, you want Akana. Akana has this mid-early 2000s USC linebacker feel to him. He's just a football player. He brings hat on a regular basis. This kid comes out to hurt people. Akana's also really close to the Kahuka linebacker and commit for Texas, Leona Lafau. They're good friends. And so Texas is still squarely in the mix there as well. He visited earlier. He's recently seen Oklahoma. I believe he took an official to LSU or a visit to LSU a couple weeks ago. He's looking at Texas A&M and Tennessee visits now. I feel like that recruitment's going to go all the way up to early National Signing Day. I feel like Texas is going to be in the mix the whole way. But the Voshik recruitment is probably going to tell us the most about where they stand with Akana. Again, in a normal cycle, you would take both those guys. You really would. But the numbers it's a number crunch right now. They're at 21 commits. There are only a few more spots for high school kids. They've got to save a few spots for portal kids. So it's a squeeze right now. And it doesn't look like they can add both at this moment, even though they would probably want to. But at this time, I think Texas only grabs one, and I think Voshik is the priority.
Any prospects we're looking at off-ball linebacker? I haven't heard a lot about that position recently.
I can tell you this. I would be shocked if they don't hit the portal for linebacker in this offseason. The development of Jalen Ford is really important because now you've got a guy that you know that can man the middle in 2023, but they're going to have to replace Overshown. And that's a guy that, like you see him go sideline to sideline on Saturdays. And so right now, I think from that linebacker spot, the only guy they're still recruiting, that they're still pursuing, and they're going to pursue through the whistle, is Anthony Hill, linebacker out of Denton Ryan. A&M commit. Even though A&M's having kind of a mediocre season, he's still solid, but he's still talking to Texas and he's still listening. That's the type of kid that, I wouldn't say a flip's an imminent thing in any sort, but Texas isn't going to let up. And if A&M looks bad enough and Texas finishes strong enough, it's crazy what happens in the state when the Horns win, because they wind up getting a lot more kids than you would expect. The season playing out, to me, is going to be the best indicator of what happens with Anthony Hill moving forward.
And then finally, defensive backs. Let's look at corner. Alabama is making a big push for Malik Muhammad, so are you still feeling comfortable holding on to him? And then what are we going to do about that second corner spot? I know Javian Toviano is a big priority, but I also don't hear about him much.
Yeah, I think at corner they're probably gonna go low. Malik Muhammad's their main guy, and he was supposed to visit Alabama in late October. He has since canceled that visit. He did tell us he could potentially reschedule it in early December. I think you're going to see some movement in early December from a lot of these guys once the season's over for most of them, once you get closer to early National Signing Day. But the fact that Muhammad, you asked me earlier about Arch coming back and things of that sort, getting Malik Muhammad back on campus with those guys, ginormous. That was absolutely imperative, and it worked. I think Malik is still solid with the Horns, but, Alabama's not letting up. And if Nick Saban prioritizes you, you got to hold on with both hands. Toviano's a guy. Javion Toviano's, to me, the best pound-for-pound DB in the state. He is a take all day, all year. He can play multiple spots from corner to nickel to safety. He's going to play on Sundays, and he's going to be damn good. His recruitment is just hard to get a read on because we think LSU is pretty much kind of trying to separate from the rest of the pack, but Toviano is so pragmatic in this process, and I respect him so much for it. He's upfront with these teams. Texas has been in it. Georgia's been in it. Oklahoma's been in it. Texas A&M looked really good for a while. Now it's LSU. I kind of get a flavor of the month type feel from Toviano in these recruitments, and Texas is not going to stop recruiting him. Don't forget, he's got 2 teammates in Austin right now. and Maurice Blackwell and Travell Johnson. So they're putting on the full court press, but they're playing from behind right now on Toviano. But that's a recruitment you got to follow till signing day. But Toviano is a fantastic individual, and anybody who gets him is going to be very, very well deserving. Right now, I think LSU is in that lead.
And then we have a really good safety in Derek Williams committed, and you got to recruit through the whistle with those top-ranked guys. So are we still feeling good there about holding on to his commitment?
Absolutely. I think there was a little bit of Muhammad there, except that, he's much more in Texas corner. LSU is just trying to continue to keep him in state. LSU usually does not lose those kids. And with Texas going in and taking their top 2 players in the state, that's rare. And so you always have to watch the Tigers for Derek Williams. I want to say they have 4 or 5 DB commits already. And so it might be kind of a crowded room in that cycle. And they're still trying to get Toviano, who we just talked about. But Derek Williams is a kid. I believe he came for a game 3 weeks ago. I want to say he was in town for the West Virginia game. Had a great time. He hung out with Jonte Cook and Trey Wisner and a bunch of the Texas commits. If Arch Manning and Will Randall are doing their job, Derek Williams isn't going to leave. He's still solid to Texas. He's another kid that I wouldn't be shocked if he takes a visit to LSU in early December or in Alabama if they came back looking for him. But at the end of the day, I think he's so happy with his commitment. I know he's got a great relationship with Terry Joseph. And like I said, Arch Manning and Will Randall, those Louisiana kids, they're not really wanting to let him go.
Good news. And when it's all said and done, how many more commits are we looking to get? How many spots? And I've heard you mention the portal a lot. So is there an added emphasis this year in bringing in transfers to complement the high school guys?
Yeah, I think you could see 3 or 4, maybe even 5 more in this cycle. It just depends on who it is. I mean, if it comes down to one spot and Anthony Hill, they're going to take him. If it comes down to one spot and Deuce Robinson, they're going to take him. It's kind of like that. But there are going to be spots saved for the portal, most notably on the defensive side, because that side of the ball has so much experience. They're going to lose a lot of it. And so I think you could see maybe one take at each level on defense. I think you could look at the interior defensive line. I think you could potentially bring in another edge if you don't have that development from Sorrell and Derek Brown and DJ Harris and Justice Finkley and that sort. And then at the linebacker spot, when you lose a DeMarvion Overshown, I think that's a guy you want to bring in. And then at safety, you got Jaron Thompson, who's potentially the defensive MVP, either him or Jalen Ford for the midseason. That kid's a junior. He'll be back. And then Anthony Cook, who's having a phenomenal season, especially with that big stick, forcing that fumble against Iowa State. He's a damn good safety. He'll be in the league next year. That's a position where, those guys, they don't develop to the right level. I could see Texas going for another a safety in the portal there, a guy that could come in and play immediately just so there's not a gap there. Now, if Keaton Crawford makes a big jump in the offseason, I could see him taking one of those spots. And also, like I said, Maurice Blackwell or J.D. Coffey, that's another guy that's trying to be in the mix as well. But at the end of the day, they're wanting to replace Cook with a guy that's got veteran leadership that Cook has. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they go portal for that last 3 lines of defense.
Awesome, man. That was a great update. I look forward to these as much as the viewers. Please tell everyone where they can hunt down your work and read all the great content you're always dropping.
Please come see us at InsideTexas.com. We're running a special right now, 4 months for only $1. That takes you through early National Signing Day, into the second National Signing Day, into bowl season. There's just so much there. We're putting up content on a ridiculous basis. We will continue to do that. We'll be on the road over the next few days, hunting down recruits. Come see us. Come hang out. Texas Homer loves Inside Texas, and you should too.
And that's a wrap on the always informative Justin Wells. Make sure to go subscribe to InsideTexas.com today. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, welcome.